Hey guys, what's up? It's Tony Mallory and
Victoria,
my beautiful wife. Hey guys, just want to let you guys know that we are good. Life is good. Everything is cool. We definitely just had a mountain to climb, and we're still kind of coming down. But everything's good. It's just been a long 2015 already, and here we are in March, right?
Yeah.
So here's the story.
We were expecting.
Mm-hmm.
We found out at around 7 weeks, and as you can imagine, we experienced every emotion. Like we were like excited and sad and like crazy.
Yeah, we've been planning a ton of stuff with V-Mount Customs and with the music, and we had some traveling to do, and the girls had a lot of stuff that they had planned, or we had planned for them anyway.
Yeah.
And so when we heard
like,
that,
another baby.
yeah, we were like, all right, oh no, this is great, I can't believe this. It was just, it was so many mixed.
A lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. So when we finally like settled in our mind,
Accepted
like,
it.
Okay, baby Mallory number 3 is on its way no matter what. So we might as well get with it. So we decided to go ahead and tell. We waited 2 extra weeks, and then we decided, okay, we can tell like some of our closest family and friends.
And so we told them on February 11th. Everything was fine. Everything was chilling. You know, we're having a baby. And so on February the 12th, around what? 2 in the morning.
So I got up around 2 the next morning after telling everybody with like the hardest excruciating pain in my stomach. It felt like a rock was in my stomach, and it felt so painful that I couldn't stand up straight. So I went to the restroom and I saw a little pink, and it made me feel a little alarmed. So I called my doctor, and he told me to get to the ER.
My soul will rest in your
I drove myself to the ER because I did not go at 2 o'clock in the morning. Shame on me. I got back in the bed. I prayed about it. I got back in the bed, and I was like, I'll go a little bit later.
Prayed about it.
So Tony ended up going to work, and while he was at work, the cramps increased.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the cramps increased, and so I got the girls dressed, and I went ahead and drove to the ER. So once I got there, they were telling me, well, we can't do an ultrasound with the girls. Like, you have to have someone come and get the girls.
That's right.
So
That's right. I almost forget that.
So I was like, oh my gosh, who am I going to call? It's the middle of a work day. It's Monday morning. Who's going to be available? So.
And it was crazy because I was working, telling the staff that we're pregnant. We were all just talking about it, yada, 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 and bam, the phone rings.
So yeah. I called him because he is my everything, and whenever I don't know who to call, like other than God, I call my husband. So when they say you need someone to come in and get the girls, I was like, well, let me just call Tony and let him know. And he was there in like 5 minutes. He literally hung up the phone for me. I'm trying to figure out how, who's gonna come and get the girls, because his reception was bad, and he comes walking through the door. So I went and got the ultrasound done. The tech in the ultrasound little area department wouldn't let me see the screen. She was like, well, our policy is in the ER, you're not allowed to see the screen when you're getting.
Never heard that before.
I've never heard that in my life. So I was like, oh, okay, well, okay, fine. And so they wheeled me back to the room where Tony and the girls were, and the ER doctor came back, and he decided, his conversation was so dry.
Yeah, he was like, well, looks like everything's working right. Your heart's doing great. Your blood pressure's fine. We're going to give you a couple pain pills, okay? And, you might have a little bleeding when you get home.
Like pain pills?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Who gives a pregnant person pain pills?
And so, and the only thing we had at that moment, again, we were, almost 3 months pregnant. So, at that point, the only thing you really have to hang on to is the little heartbeat, from your very first ultrasound. And so I asked him, so, is the baby okay? And I kind of knew from the pains that she was having. She's never been that sluggish in the house. She's never been, lazy ever. And for the past couple of days, at that point, she had kind of been, you know, taking it really easy and moving slow, and so whatever. So anyway, he says, after I asked him, he says, well, we're not sure, but there's no more heartbeat.
I think it kind of hit me all at once. Like I didn't expect to react the way that I did, but I ended up taking it a little bit harder than what I maybe would have done in a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
But when he said that we no longer have the heartbeat, I was like messed up, like I did not take that well at all, especially after just telling all of our family and friends. It was like, wow, now I have to go back the next day,
day.
So now I have to call them again and say, hey, don't be excited anymore, baby's not coming. So it was very hard in that sense. So I'm kind of glad that we didn't tell the whole entire world, because that would have been just that would have been horrible for me. Like for us, it would have been just bad. So from there, the cramping increased.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave me morphine and then sent me home. Like they did nothing else for me. That ER doctor said, you're gonna see bleeding, and that is perfectly normal. So
they didn't take it out. Like they didn't go in.
They didn't do anything.
I think it's called a DNC, where they go in and
scrape the uterus.
Scrape the uterus.
So they didn't do anything. They just sent me home with the pain pills.
So it could pass it home.
Yeah. So when I got home, that's when the cramping started, and it was contractions. And for me, I had never experienced that. I know I have 2 daughters, but I've never experienced that because I had 2 C-sections. So it was like, the pain of the C-section is afterwards. It's never before. The vaginal births or contractions, so they have the pain before. And then, after they push the baby, the pain is done. And so I was used to my pain coming afterwards. So when these cramps were hitting me, oh my gosh, they were intense. And it was some hard stuff to come home and have to basically pass your child on the toilet. It's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, her body actually went through the entire delivery process, where, she has contractions and they were a certain amount of time apart, and her back was hurting and she was having back spasms and she was freezing cold, and headaches and swelling feet and all kind of crazy stuff was going on. But to us, this was the process of the miscarriage.
Right, because we had no point of reference. We
Yeah.
didn't know that that's not normal, to have all those symptoms.
And so
the blood increased, and it stayed for a long time. Actually, what happened was I got on Dr. Google because I never had a miscarriage before. Well, actually, I had one, but I was so early on that it passed through, and I didn't have to experience contractions or anything like that. So anyway, by me being almost 3 months pregnant, it was like my body had to do some pushing. And so I got on Google, and I was like, how long should one bleed after a miscarriage? And it was like all these testimonials, and all these women were on there saying like, oh, it takes up to 2 weeks to bleed. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm in good shape. I'm about a week into it. And although there is no sign of slowing down, I still have another week to go. So
yeah, and we kind of, we saw it getting worse, but we thought, again, we thought that this was the process. So each day the bleeding increased and it increased, and
I had one slow day,
and she
that was
took
like,
advantage of that.
That was like on the 8th day, and it was the day that I was kind of like finally trying to feel myself. I had like all these different engagements that were coming up. I had a fashion show I was preparing for. I had someone I was preparing a logo for. So I was excited to be able to have a slow day so that I could get up out the bed and function like a normal mom and a normal businesswoman and a normal wife, So I was so excited about that. But then when I went to check the flow, I'm going to get really transparent here, guys. There was a stench, and it was something like I had never smelled in my life. It literally smelled like death. That's the only way that I can describe it. And I was so flabbergasted by the scent. I told Tony, I was like, babe, come here, you gotta smell this. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, the bathroom in the hall. Yeah, it was I mean, it was crazy. Yeah, the stench was. I mean, like she said, it smelled like the way that people describe death smells like would be this. This is how it almost wasn't a smell. It was
It was like a fume, you know.
Yeah,
like
it was almost like the way gasoline takes over. You know, whatever it touches, that's how it smells.
It was bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It was bad. And so now I'm thinking, okay, shower. You need to like get this smell off of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting in the shower. I get in the shower. Worst idea I could have ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I get out the shower and the blood just starts. It's going,
mm-hmm.
and it's heavier than ever before.
This is day 8 or day 10?
This is day 9.
This is day 9.
Day 9. So the blood. So on day 8, I saw a slowdown. So I decided to do some work. On day 9, the flood, it just came. The flood came, and so day 9, I started passing clots like the size of a fist.
Literally.
Like they were about this big. Every time I would use the restroom, that's what I would pass. These clots that were fist size. They were huge. I was sure I saw the fetus 10 times. You know, I'm like, there's no way that, you know, I should still be bleeding this hard when I was only that far along, you know. So on day 10, Tony was home from work, which was Sunday night. He was home from work, and I could not get warm. Like, in my mind, I was still okay because Dr. Google said I still have 4 days left to bleed, you know. So, you know, don't take Google so seriously, especially when it comes to your health. But
please don't.
Anyway,
please
I was just like, you know, I still have 4 days left. It's day 10. So I couldn't get warm. He got home from work, and I was like, I felt terrible because he would get home from work and have to cook dinner because I had no strength. I could not get up. And my girls were doing everything for me. I was like, Tori, I need water. She was like, okay, I'll go get it, you know. And I was like, Terry, I need some tissues. Like, I got it, Mom. And so I just thank God for them, you know, because I probably I don't even want to talk about it. So anyway, Tony gets home from work. My spine, it was like, only way I can describe it, it was like a chill that gripped my spine and it would not let me go. And it caused my body to shake violently, and I could not get warm. So I decided, you know, I said, Tony, I need some layers. So he got me sweaters and comforters and all this stuff, and I'm just wrapped all the way up. And my answer for everything was, I needed an aspirin. Like, give me an aspirin, I'll be fine. I'm lightheaded. They'll take away the headache, and I'll be okay.
So we never take pain pills. So when she asked for an Advil, I was like, yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy. So
yeah, like, actually, I had those. It was goody goody powder. I got them from my mother-in-law when we were back in Florida like 2 years ago.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what goody powders are because I told people you were taking them and they were like, what
is that? It's just aspirin, but it's just crunched up kind.
Yeah.
So it goes straight to the bloodstream, so you can get rid of the headache or whatever pain you have fast. And I was like, just go give me one of those. I'll be fine, you know. And so he had grabbed me one, and when I had taken it, the blood just flooded down. It was like, psh, and I had to run because it was everywhere, floor, it was everywhere, and at that time I passed about 10 clots the size of a fist. About 10 of them just kept coming, and
so she's she's in the restroom, and I'm just standing there rubbing her back like I do, did it every day, and I'm just standing there rubbing her back, and she lays her head on my leg, and she's just crying and crying, and it hurt, the contractions hurt the first 2 or 3 days, but the pains went away. I guess I could say they went away, but the blood was still there. Well, this day, day 9,
this is day 10.
well, this was going into day 10. This was probably like 9 or 10 o'clock at night on day 9. And she had her head on my leg in the restroom, and I'm just, standing there rubbing her back. And then she's crying and crying and crying, which was new. And then she just fell asleep. And then I was like, okay, cool. She found a place to get some rest. And
I don't even remember that.
And then she, right. And then she, like, just from a dead silence and breathing, she just goes, boom, right into hysterical crying again. And then, and then it was more like a snap, quietness. And then I knew, that's crazy. She didn't fall asleep. This might be a blackout. This might be her fainting. Never experienced that before. And her head was, by the way, blazing hot at this point when she fainted the second time. So I grabbed the thermometer, I run in there, and, it's all Celsius. No Fahrenheit, all Celsius. I'm like, what the heck? So she was at like 39 degrees Celsius. And for those who know how to convert Celsius into Fahrenheit, which I learned that night, 39 degrees Celsius is about 103, 104, somewhere in between 103, 104 in Fahrenheit, which for any body, that's a temperature. That's a fever. So I called the doctor. It's 10 o'clock at night. I called the doctor's exchange. Yeah. And the exchange guys pick up. Usually they'll tell you, hey, call the doctor in the morning. Go straight to ER. They don't really even try to get in contact with the doctor. Well, this time, thank God, the guy tried to get in contact with the doctor, and Dr. Thomas, our doctor, he answered the phone at 10 o'clock at night.
No, he never answered the phone.
He never answers the phone. Not that, he answered the phone at 10 o'clock at night, and he says, hey, Victoria? And I said, no, this is her husband, Tony. Victoria is bleeding, and she has a fever of 102. He didn't ask any questions. He just said, you need to get her to the doctor. Get her to the ER ASAP. She might have an infection. When I tell Victoria, she had just started on this beautiful hair right here that she has. She had just started on this, and she had like 2 or 3 done.
My hair was a mess, is what he's trying to say. It was a mess, and I was like, I'm not going to the ER with my hair.
I ain't going to the ER with my hair.
I had like 3 false locks done, and the rest was like a hot mess.
It was
and so
nice.
I was like, I'm not going anywhere like this.
Yeah, she said,
I was like,
not,
just give me an aspirin, and I'm good. I'll go to bed, because it was already 10:30. It was like,
we had just put the girls to bed, and it was freezing cold outside.
It was so cold outside.
And I just spent like an hour trying to get the truck running,
Yeah,
so
the battery was dead.
The battery died on the truck, and so
it's just so much.
It was a lot going on that day. You're right, and so I told her, babe, we got to go to the ER. And she's like, babe, I can't go to the ER. I can't go to the ER. My hair is a mess. I can't go to the ER. I'm fine, babe. I'm fine. Just give me an airfield. I'm like, all right, cool,
basically
whatever.
What he did was gave me a hat and said, girl, let's get out of this house.
And so we did.
And I'm glad we did.
So I ran outside and cranked the car up. Thank God it started. I got the girls, put the coats on, ran them out there.
When I came to, guys, I was fully dressed and on the road. I was like, this man here got me dressed, got our girls dressed, got all of us in the car. And when I came to, I was like, didn't I say give me an aspirin? I was gonna go to bed. He was like, we're going to the ER.
4 miles from St. Mary's. So we get to the ER. And this is where all the fireworks start. We get to ER, and
my aspirin has kicked in at this point.
Aspirin kicked in.
So the fever is gone.
Fever's gone.
And because I've already passed the 10 clots, the blood has ceased. So to the ER, there's nothing wrong.
We got there, and of course you got to sit for a second. We got in, and they took her in there. And, hey, Dr. Thomas told you were coming. He told us in emergency we're going to pull you back before we pull anybody else back. They pulled us back there, hooked her up to the machines, not the ones that they needed to anyway, but they hooked her up to the machines, gave her, some fluid, put her an IV in because the doctor told her to, and checked her temperature, and it was about a 97, 98. It was good. And then they said, hey, do you have to use restroom? You got to use the bathroom? Go use the bathroom. They went, she used the bathroom. Nothing. Nothing. For the first time ever, from the 12th up until that point, not even a speck of blood. And then the nurses started acting, well, a couple of them started acting kind of rude because they felt like,
They felt we
what?
were lying or something. Like
She's lying.
she
They're
probably
lying.
want a doctor's statement. Let's get off work or something.
Yeah.
Let him know.
So they, they're checking stuff and there's nothing there. So they called the doctor and told him, hey, we're going to send him home with some pills, yada, yada, yada. Dr. Thomas told them, hey, well, I know ultrasound is closed right now because at this point it's about midnight.
Yeah.
I know ultrasound is closed right now, but I need you guys to open it up and just check her for me. Check her real
Praise
quick.
God for that, for God leading that doctor, because my doctor, Dr. Thomas, because those doctors, when they checked my temperature and there was none, and they checked, when they asked me if I was bleeding and I told them no, and I peed in the cup and all that stuff, when I did all that stuff, nothing came back that would say how sick I was. Nothing came back to say that. But for some reason, God put it on Dr. Thomas' heart to tell them, I don't care what it looks like, open up the ultrasound and take an in-depth look at this girl.
Do not send her home.
He said, do not send her home. They had every right legally to send me home.
Documents were ready and everything. Had the prescription and everything, and I wasn't gonna let them send her home because I know what's been going on. Because the one thing that gave me some hope that we wouldn't go home and that they go a little deeper in their investigating was that he asked how long she'd been bleeding, and when we said 10 days, it blew their mind because there's no medical reason why you should be bleeding for 10 days. Period. That's what they told us. Period.
Thanks, Dr. Google.
Thanks, Dr. Google. Yeah. You suck. And so they said, well, what made you think 2 weeks? We looked up on Dr. Google and said 2 weeks.
And your ER doctor didn't tell me anything but take a payment and go home and do it yourself.
So they do the ultrasound and they come back. They hooked her up to the heart monitor. And her heart rate is where it's supposed to be between, a 60 and a 90 over, 90 or something like that. Yeah. It was about 170 over 100. Never forget that number. And so, but I used to work at DePaul, and I saw that stuff, so I knew what it was. And when I saw 160, 170, I'm like, what are we about to do? What is going on? Do y'all see this? And they were surprised too because no other test was showing anything crazy. And then they came in, well, we want to draw some blood, everything's going to be fine, da 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 da. They drew blood to check her hemoglobin count, her HG count, which is typically supposed to be between 12 and 14. And then the doctor came back. This is a whole different doctor now. We never met this guy. He comes in without introducing himself, without anything else. His first line was, she has 6 hours to live. And I said, okay, all right, okay, so what are we doing? What are we about to do? And he said, we have to give her some blood transfusions. We have to get her an emergency operation going. He said there's a huge list of people who've been on the OR list for at least a year. We have to try and see if we can jump in front of those people because she is deathly sick. There are a lot of papers, some paperwork you have to sign for the blood transfusion. There's paperwork you have to sign for the operation, but we need to get her going and get things happening, while you sign those. They brought in all this paperwork, including a will paper, saying, and they're trying to talk to her, saying, hey, we know he's your husband, but we want to make sure that he's the person you want to leave all your belongings to in case anything happens. And I told him I didn't have time for jokes. We got to get her, we got to get her in the operating room and get this one blood transfusion done. So the doctor pulls me to the side and he says, pull me to the side and he says, I'm sorry, but she's probably not going to make it. Her hemoglobin count was 4.5, where it's supposed to be between 12 and 14. And he says he's never seen anybody operate under a 6. And he said the blood transfusion number is 7. So in his mind, hey, she's gone. I just want to let you know I'm sorry in advance. We can sign the paperwork. We can do the blood transfusions. But if she bleeds out, one more time, if she bleeds one more time, just enough to fill up a pad like you guys say she's been doing, then that's unfortunately going to be all the blood she has left in her body.
Around that time, it just around that time when he came into the room, when they took all my vital signs and everything, I just remember him grabbing my hand. At this point, I was kind of in and out, so I heard him, but I didn't hear him. Like, he grabbed my hand, and I could tell at that point that his studying did not even prepare him for the miracle. That God was performing. He just grabbed my hand and he said, ma'am. He said, ma'am. He kept grabbing my hand and just stroking it, and he kept saying, ma'am, ma'am. It was kind of like he was experiencing an out-of-body experience where you like somebody pinched me. Is this real right now? And he grabbed my hand and he said, ma'am. He said, ma'am, you're deathly ill. He said, ma'am, you're deathly ill. Do you understand the deadly sickness that is happening in your body right now? He said, ma'am, you have lost 75% of the blood in your body. He said, I've never seen anybody operate with 25% of the blood in their body. He said, ma'am, you are dead.
Her heart was working so hard. Her heart was working so hard because it had so little to work with, and her body started. I'll never forget this. I mean, when you go to the ER, when you go to the hospital, sometimes you have to, in order to gain their sensitivity or in order to gain their interest in getting you healed, sometimes you have to play the part a little bit. And before he had said all of this, she had started doing this shake thing that I've never seen her do. And she just kept saying, my spine is cold, my spine is cold. And so I'm thinking, okay, she's vibrating like crazy. Like they couldn't find a vein, because she was shaking so much. And I'm thinking, okay, playing the crap out of that part, babe. You got it.
I thought I was joking.
I think they're gonna take you in. I don't think we're going home now. Chill out. And she's shaking, and I knew it was real when nobody else was in there but me and her. And she's still shaking, and she's like, her eyes are rolling to the back of her head, and once or twice I kind of got
up. Slapped me. He did. He slapped the taste out of my mouth. He was like, "Hey, get up! Like you ain't leaving me today."
Oh my gosh, she was shaking so much. She was shaking so much, and her head was going, like her head was already laying down, but her head was going back, and her chin was coming up, and her eyes were rolling in the back of her head. And I was like, "Hey, babe, hey," something like that.
He was like, "Hey, stop playing."
That's about as hard as I slapped her.
I don't remember everything, but I remember the slap. I remember the slap. I was like, "Hey, I'm right here." Okay, I'm right.
It's funny she said it because I had to. I popped her face and she didn't move or nothing.
Like, hey, girl.
Hey, wake up, wake up, babe.
I was like,
wake up.
I don't remember all of it, but I do remember the slap, and I also remember while I was trying to get my body. While I was trying to get my body to more, it was like my spine was so cold I could not stop shivering. I had about 15 blankets on, literally.
Oh, yeah.
I had about 15
and
blankets
like 5
on,
or 6 of those were from the heater.
Yeah, they were like the heated blankets, and then I had my coats that are the kids' coats. Everybody's coats were on top of me, and I could not get warm. And I remember while I was in the process of shaking uncontrollably,
And
I
all
remember
the nurses and doctors that walked in, and they were trying to get her to stop shaking.
Yeah, they were like, I could hear everybody. It was weird for me because I could hear everybody. I knew everybody was there, but I didn't hear a word. I didn't hear any English, and I didn't see anybody's face really clear. Like I saw Tori. Tori got up.
She woke up. She was in her and Terry were in the stroller at the foot of the bed, well, as far from the bed as possible. But these ER rooms are tiny.
Yeah.
So they were in the stroller. They both were asleep.
Like they were there the entire time.
The entire time. Like they never, the doctor saw them, and they never asked us to make them leave or anything. And I know some of you guys are watching like, oh, that's how stupid. Why'd you let your kids watch that? Well, you explain to your kids what happened. You know, God forbid, when they wake up one morning and daddy's just not there. For the rest of their life, they didn't see the story. They have to hear stories. They didn't see the video. They have to hear stuff. And when they won't understand it fully until they're 20 or 30. And they have to die knowing that they didn't get to see mommy or daddy for the last time. You explain that, while you're sitting there watching the video saying how stupid of them to have the kids in the room. Mark my words, and our friends and family know it. My kids will be with us every step of the way. Every time I'm in the studio, they'll probably be there. They will be homeschooled. They will be on the road with us. They'll be in the hospital rooms. They'll be everywhere. They'll be wherever we go.
So while I was shaking, normal 4-year-old kids probably would have been screaming, like, what is going on with mommy? What is happening? First of all, God had given my kids such peace that Terry slept through the entire process. Terry was knocked out.
She was out.
but Tori got up, and I remember I couldn't see anybody's face. Everybody was a blur. I couldn't hear everybody's voice except for Tony's voice occasionally. I guess whenever he slapped me, I heard his voice.
Wake up!
But while I was shaking, I couldn't get warm. Tori got up and she stood at the foot of my bed, and she grabbed my foot. And I never heard such maturity in a 4-year-old. She grabbed my foot and she said, "Mommy." And I said, "Yeah, Tori." She said, "Mommy." And I said, "Yes, Tori." She said, "You gonna be all right. You hear me?"
And then she got back in the stroller and went to sleep.
And I stopped shaking.
She stopped shaking. She did. And they went to sedate her. But whatever they were giving her wouldn't work. She wouldn't fall asleep. And from then on, we were in the hospital.
Yeah, so they started the resuscitation process, and they admitted me, and we didn't have a room for the time that we were there because, all the rooms were filled. So I went from being at the end of the list to when they checked my HG level, and saw that I was nowhere near a 12. They end up putting me the first on the list. So I went from the last person on the list to the first priority, and they end up moving someone out of the room, cleaning it up, and
straight to ICU,
giving me that room
in ICU.
Yeah,
straight to ICU.
So I had a room in the ICU, and so they went. They gave me I ended up having to get 3 blood transfusions because the first one
didn't do nothing.
It didn't do anything, and
the
then
second one, your hemoglobin.
He knows better than I do.
Yeah, the first one didn't do anything, and the second one, her hemoglobin count. Well, I'm sorry, the first one, her hemoglobin count went up half, but the doctor said it didn't. That's nothing. So now she's at a 5 on her HG count, and then from there, they gave her a second pint, and that second blood transfusion dropped it a half, and then the third blood transfusion brought her up to 9. No, brought her up to 6.5. 6.5, which still was a climb. Any climb from a blood transfusion is good, but it wasn't the climb they were expecting. So they took her down, did the operation, cleaned everything out.
Did the DNC.
Yep, did the DNC, cleaned everything out, and I got to sit down with the doctor. He took me to a private room and explained to me everything that was going on. And there was a lot going on with her body, the reason she was bleeding out. The first thing was, when you have a miscarriage, your cervix is supposed to open, empty, and close back up. Well, hers did, but hers opened and it closed back up so fast that not everything got out, which happens, which is why they're supposed to normally do a DNC and not send you home. But anyway, hers opened and closed, and it didn't empty nearly everything out, which is why they found something on the ultrasound in ER. And then what it did let out, it didn't leave her body totally. It got into her bloodstream. So with the body knowing that there's still something in her cervix is closed and it's not empty, what was in there deteriorated and it infected her bloodstream. Before it infected her bloodstream, her blood was trying to clean out what was in her cervix, so it would bleed and bleed and bleed until the infection comes out, that's normal. Well, while it was bleeding out, whatever was in her cervix deteriorated and it got into her bloodstream, and her entire bloodstream, her entire blood count in her entire body was infected. And the infection, as the days went by, the infection got worse, which is why the bleeding got worse as days went by. So her body was trying to clean itself out by cleaning out everything infected. And everything infected was every drop of blood that she freaking had. So her body was cleaning itself out, and the doctor said that she was just bleeding out, and she had one more time to bleed. So he cleaned her out. They gave her bottles and bottles and bottles and bottles of antibiotics. And even after, even when it was up to the day for us to leave, they said her body still had some bacteria in her bloodstream, but it wasn't enough for them to worry about, for lack of better words. And so when it was time to leave, we had an awesome nurse. Her name was Amy. We had a lot of awesome nurses, and Amy was just an angel. And she would be up there a little bit over her hours, a little bit before her hours, and but she got to sit down and talk to Vic about making stuff, V-Mount Customs, and found out that she made some custom stuff, and that was pretty cool. She made some stuff. I say all that to say she made some stuff for the girls, and
we'll have pictures at the end.
We have some pictures at the end. But she was just a sweetheart, and we had some family come up. My brother-in-law, he works out of town, and so as soon as he got word, he drove all the way back to St. Louis, and he didn't even stop. He got out the car, parked in it.
Oh, he stopped for some juice.
He stopped for some juice. That's right, the juice.
My brother left work, and he was out of town. Mm-hmm. He found out that I was in the hospital. He came directly to the hospital. Yep. And
when he got there, he said, "Man, I parked illegally, and they might tow my car, but hey, I had to get up here to see my sister." And so he got up there, he saw her, and that was just a breath of fresh air. And mom stayed there, most of the time. Mom stayed there most of the time, and Tony Kale, shout out to you, man. You showed up, and
Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy came. Tracy and her husband. Thank you guys for coming.
And Toy and Sherry and
Grandma,
Ashley.
And
that was Aunt Celeste. I thank God for all of you guys. You don't know.
Dad, you showed up. We saw you, Pastor Dave and Pastor Nicole. They did a prayer for us. Not only did they do a prayer for us and mention us in the sermon, but they called me, and Pastor Dave and Pastor Nicole. And when I say we had a powerful time on the phone in prayer, Pastor Dave, he went in and he said amen. And after he said amen, you can hear Pastor Nicole beside him just going deeper and going deeper and going deeper. And she was calling stuff down and calling stuff out and saying what it is, and this is what we believe. And Pastor Dave always says, whose report will you believe? We believe the word and the report of the Lord. And that's what we did, man. We believed it, and here we are now.
You know what, guys? I just want to say, I'm so grateful for this man. This is the true hero. Because if he had not gotten me up and got our girls in that car, I was going to go to bed. And for that doctor to say, you have approximately 6 hours, I would not have gotten up the next morning. So I thank God for my husband, my hero, for saving my life. When my truck wouldn't start, he called it for help and got that car jumped because he was not taking no for an answer. He said, "You're going to the hospital and you're going tonight." And had he not, there would not have been any resuscitations. My baby went and got me some tissue, y'all. She just woke up, saw her mama crying. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Where's your sister? She sleeps. She sleeps. Yeah, guys. So here we are. Everything is well. Taking a lot of pills right now, but who cares? That's the earthly way to get stuff taken care of. So we're just gonna believe God and take these pills. We love you guys. We thank you, and boy, do we have some surprises going on. You guys are aware of the picture that Victoria posted a while back. You know, one of her biggest dreams was always to have a fashion truck. Before we saw the food trucks, before we ever saw a fashion truck, which some of you probably never seen because they're very rare. Victoria came to me one day and was like, "Babe, what if we went to all of the jobs downtown New York, downtown Nashville, downtown Memphis, downtown Chicago, downtown St. Louis, where everybody is in the corporate world, and what if we went down there with this big truck, and, you know, since they can't shop while they work, why don't we go down there with the truck? Why don't we set the truck up like a store on the inside and have them come in the truck and buy some stuff? Better yet, you know, she makes custom clothes. Why don't we have them drop off the clothes that they don't want, the clothes that they, you know, need fixed up? We fix them on the truck, and when they get off the next day, they come out and everything is customized, and we can take pictures, and we can have 30-minute runway shows, and we can have a little cafe, and, you know, and it's all travel." Well, sure enough,
My husband got me a truck.
we were in the hospital, and we just decided this is not where it stops. And,
This
you know,
is only the beginning.
6 hours is not enough time to do everything that we had on our list. With that being said, with that happening so fast, we realized that we probably were procrastinating because we figured we had a lot of time. I'll get an album. We'll be down in Nashville. She'll get a truck. But we're not waiting anymore. And, you know,
Ceasing the moment.
we're seizing the opportunities. You know, we're taking the moment. We love you guys. Thank you guys for your love. Thank you guys for your support. And
Stay tuned, and thank you guys
Stay tuned.
for rocking with us this long, and now being able to see part 2, a second chapter of the book that's being written in our journey. Also, I will be releasing my book very soon, where I write all of these experiences, but really it's a journey to success. So I look forward to sharing that with you guys, and God is good.
yeah.
They see me on the stage, they like that boy the man. They hear play on them songs, they clapping in them stands. They like, I bet you get a lot of them stats from rubber bands. So when I say it's been a half few years, they think I'm playing. But you don't know my life, boy. You don't know my life, boy. You don't know what it's been like on my wife, don't know my fight, boy. Been in them trenches, steady trying to fight my foes. And when I couldn't fight no more, he rolled me out, he rolled me out. I know I can't bear it out.
Feel thorns where my crown was.
wasn't able to hear everything
That was going
went
on.
Tony was trying to tell me some of the stuff, and I'm just flabbergasted, by some of the stuff that happened. Would you
This is
mind?
Dr. Tomas. He's Tori and Terry's best friend.
with my two best friends. So that was something they call a near death, because you've been bleeding so much, your blood comes down, your immune system, what they call your resistance, was down. Yeah. So your resistance immune system went down. So that's what, from the emergency room, we got to send you to the ICU, intensive care unit. This is where they put the sickest patient, because when you came in, your blood pressure was very low, your immune system, your resistance was very low. So that's what, and most of all, you were extremely dehydrated. So if you spend another 8, 12, 24 hours, only God knows what could have happened.
This experience for me has been something I will never forget. I am forever grateful to my God for allowing me to walk through these doors and sleep on this bed temporarily for 4 days. So I can get up and do what I'm about to do right now.
From the dust until dawn, yeah, I'll survive, 'cause I got sweet victory. Nobody can take it from me. Sweet victory, 'cause I got